Good morning. My name is Cory S DOC, and my inmate number is 407414.
This hearing is being conducted in consideration of the parole application for Cory S DOC, inmate number 407414. He is serving a sentence of 20 years jail, 8 years to serve, followed by 15 years of probation for 2 counts of illegal sexual contact. As of today, records reflect parole eligibility date of December 26, 2023. There is no victim input in this case. There is an offender accountability plan for the offender. It has been reviewed and shows the offender has completed the short track program, Voices. He's a trash worker. He completed the Tier 2 program, and he is currently participating in the aftercare program. Utilizing the statewide fraud offender risk evaluation system, the offender's overall score falls within the low range of risk for recidivism. And utilizing the static 99R, the offender's overall score falls within the low to moderate range of risk for recidivism. Mr. Savard, this is your opportunity to express to the board why you believe you should be granted parole. You may begin.
Just one moment. Did you say that there wasn't victim input, or I misheard?
Oh, I did. I'm so sorry. There is victim input in this case. Thank you, Mr. Dargan. I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Savard. You could give an opening statement if you would like. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Good morning. I am grateful to be here today for the opportunity to be granted parole. I would like to start by expressing my deep remorse for the actions and selfish ways. Every day I regret the pain that I caused my victim and the family. I loved and cared for them so much. They were everything to me. But I took advantage of my victim with my selfish actions. It breaks my heart that I caused my victim this travesty, as I myself am a survivor of sexual abuse, and the weight of this damage I caused cannot be forgiven. I know they will always carry this burden for the rest of their life, and I never wanted anyone to feel that amount of pain. I know I have damaged them for good, and a piece of them will always be missing. But I hope and pray they can find some sort of closure. While in prison, the program that impacted me the most was the sexual offender treatment program. This program taught me coping mechanisms for my deviant thoughts, showed me the schemas that led to my offending, and gave me tools I need to be a successful member of society. While in group, I expressed how my selfishness led to commit my crime, along with my abuse as a child. There are no excuses, and I can't believe I committed the very act I know is repulsive. The Voices program helped me to see my crime through the eyes of my victim. As a survivor of abuse myself, I should have remembered the pain it caused me, but unfortunately, I had buried that pain until I took this program. The sadness this program brought up for my victim and my past made me remember that feeling, that fragile child I once was, and now I continued that cycle of abuse. Both of the programs, along with Tier 2 program, that assessment and I believed would be helpful for my success in life, helped me gain knowledge on how to deal with my anger issues. I have to express myself in a positive way more, instead of bottling up my emotions and lashing out with unhealthy behaviors. I still need to address my problems, both past and present, and will continue to work on myself daily. I have developed a support network at home that will be important to my reintegration. I am working hard and dedicated to living a positive life in society. That includes being there for my loved ones and showing them through my actions that I am a changed person. If granted parole, I plan on helping my father with his muscular dystrophy, which is progressively getting worse. He is currently 75 years old, and I want to spend as much time with him that I can before he is unable to take care of himself, or worse, passes away. I know he really needs me, but it's too prideful to admit it. I'm sorry, Pops. I plan on working full-time like I was before my crime, and I have a job available upon being granted parole. I have many skill sets which include auto mechanic, construction, and commercial fishing. I know life will be difficult in my situation, and I will be pushing a boulder uphill, that is the public registry. But I am committed to being successful on my path to rebuilding my life after being granted parole. Thank you for your time and consideration granting me parole.
All right, sir. Thank you very much for that opening statement. We as a board have some questions that we prepared that we would like to ask you. And then at the conclusion of those questions, we have input from Office of Victim Services. And at that time, we'll discuss your case and get back to you with our decision, okay?
Okay.
And I also, before we get going, I'd just like to let the record reflect that we received input from the state's attorney's office in referencing, their opposition to your early release, all right? So I just want the record to reflect that. So at this time, I'm going to turn the hearing over to my colleague, panel member Smith Palmieri, for questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Savard, I appreciate your opening statement. You've provided us, I think, a lot of insight into what you feel, how you feel you've benefited from each of the programs that you've taken. For the record, you've had a fairly good stint at the Department of Corrections. You have only had the one disciplinary report from 3 years ago. Otherwise, you seem to have done well, accomplished many of the programs that were on your OAP is programs that they assessed and developed a plan that would help you continue on to be successful. You talked about the sex offender treatment program and how it sort of sheds some light on your own behaviors, your own past. Can you talk a little bit more about what you were able to identify as triggers in that program for yourself going forward, and the relapse plan that you've developed for when you're back in the community?
Yes. So upon taking the program before that, it wasn't even something that I realized was happening. I didn't know what a schema was. So I'm sure you guys have heard the term before, but I learned that because past events that I've experienced led me to believe that certain actions are okay, even though it's not true, but it gave me that false belief. And I was going through a very stressful time in my life, and with all the stress and built up emotions that I wasn't expressing properly, all the tension led me to believe that the act I was committing, because it was done to me, was a normal act, which I now know is created by this false thinking and distorted thinking. And I know now, and I don't want to say I didn't know before, but I couldn't understand why I committed this act. And now I have a much better idea why I committed this act, how it was committed, and what led to this act. And the way that I would prevent that in the future would be to better process my emotions. I had a lot of emotions that I buried down deep inside. Within the last 4 years is the first time that I really even talked to anybody about my sexual abuse as a child. And I think that was something that was really important for me to get out and to face those fears and to deal with that. I've just buried it. And I buried it so deep that I didn't want to believe it existed anymore. But the truth is it does exist, and it makes me who I am today. And that will always be part of me. And I have to learn to deal with that and process it in a healthy way. And what that did to me and what the causes it has on my mental thinking. And I think that I'd be successful at preventing that by a lot of methods that I've developed with my support network that I have in the community. I have friends and family that I can talk to when I feel these things. I plan on doing more treatment. I've even inquired here about more treatment. It's something that I need to dig into deeper. They only let you go so far with it. And in the future, I have a lot of things in place that I think that would be very successful. Some of the things, like I said, are the network, the people I have around, but most importantly is understanding my feelings and the thoughts that develop. I think that's super important for my success and preventing any type of relapse. Understanding the feelings and the thoughts that come from, and confronting them and processing them. I mean, I think that's my way of dealing with it and my way to be successful with dealing with those deviant thoughts.
So you're 35 years old. You were roughly, what, 31, 32 when you committed this offense? 31.
I think I was 30. I just turned 31. Yeah.
Okay. So how are you managing all these feelings prior to committing this incident?
I was bottling up a lot of my emotions, and, I would take them out in the gym. I would do physical work, as a commercial fisherman, and that's how I would, try to process my feelings. And I realized that that's just not a healthy way. You bottle that bottle up and it's just going to explode. And I believe that that's what happened in my case, is that I just kept bottling up these feelings that needed to be processed, needed to be evaluated, but I was not processing or evaluating these feelings. I was stuffing them down inside and they just exploded.
Okay. So this is not your first period of incarceration. You were incarcerated on another charge for burglary first. And when you were serving your sentence for that, did you participate in treatment then?
For sexual offending?
No, just for mental health treatment or substance abuse treatment, where maybe you might have been able to process some of these feelings through those methods?
Yes, I actually did do a drug program. That was the only program that I did take. That was the only one on my OAP. I did take that. I did try to use some of the skills that I got from there, but I don't think that I was determined in putting those things that I learned forward and applying them to my everyday life.
So what I hear from you is you see that the treatments that you've participated in, the programs, while you've been in the facility this time, have laid a strong foundation for success when you're back in the community in terms of being able to manage those thoughts and feelings through treatment?
Absolutely. I think having a foundation and a structure in place is so important. And I took that for granted before. I took for granted all the things that I did learn. And I thought, well, my life was okay before that. And it wasn't. I needed to create a solid structure. You need a foundation to build these things upon. Life has a lot of things, a lot of emotions, a lot of things to process. And I'm learning to deal with all that in a healthy way. And I want to keep a strong structure and foundation, because I know that that'll lead to my success ultimately in life, with everything, not just programs.
So suppose you're granted parole today and you're back out in the community. What do you see as being an obstacle for you?
What do I see as being an obstacle? I could see that the registry can be tough to deal with. I know that is, it's tough to get housing sometimes, and I could see that be a little bit of an obstacle, but I mean, I think I have a strong plan, a strong foundation, a strong support system, and a strong network. I don't really see too many obstacles. I mean, I know that it's not going to be easy, but I know that I'm willing to give it 150%. I mean, there's no quitting me.
So I asked that question, and it seems like you have a support system with your partner, your girlfriend that you've proposed to live with.
Yep.
From release, it seems as though you have you have skills in terms of securing employment and some viable opportunities for you through those skills. Ones that your conviction probably would not pose an obstacle towards. But I am interested to learn a little bit more about how you plan to manage your behaviors in the community. I know you keep saying you have a support system, but do you think that continued sex offender treatment would be useful? Do you think that's something you need?
I think it would be useful. I don't think
Do you
that.
think you need it? I mean, do you think you need it?
I think it needs to be explored. Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't want to ever say I don't need it. I don't think that's being smart about it at all. I think I should keep my risk as low as possible and to continue to treat myself. Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. How do you keep your risk low?
Keeping my risk low to me means continuing treatment, continuing programs. I enjoy doing them. I enjoy building on the blocks that I've created so far, which would be my plans and my future. What I want to do for work, what I want to do at home, how I want to live, how I want to construct my life, and who I want to be around in that life.
You spoke a little bit earlier about the Voices program and what you've learned from it. And from what you heard and participated in the program, what do you think the long-term impact on the victims?
I think the long-term impact on the victims is it's hard for them too. I think that they go through a lot, and I think that you should never forget that. When you've caused pain and suffering to somebody, I think that's something you shouldn't take lightly, and it's something I don't take lightly. I think what I did was absolutely terrible, and I don't think you should ever make somebody feel like that. And I don't ever want to make somebody feel like that again.
Okay. Well, what do you think the impact on this victim will be going forward? What do you think that does to their emotions, their life in general?
I think it leaves them with a burden that they don't know how to process what happened because they don't understand why it happened, just like I didn't. And I think that it's not fair to them to have to deal with that and to have to process that alone. I hope that they have help and that they could get help from somebody to seek out what those emotions mean. I think that it's deeply impacted them, and I know that this will affect them for the rest of their life, and they will probably have troubles because of this, unfortunately. And I'm very sorry for that. I can't say that enough. Words can't express how sorry I am for the impact that I've had on this victim. I know it's not to be taken lightly.
When you were participating in the sex offender treatment program and participating in the victims program, did they talk about the victim's ability to trust going forward?
They did a little bit that they will have broken trust, and it's hard for them to trust adults, particularly in my circumstances. it's hard for them to trust. You know, I was a parent figure at that time, so I think it was really a break of trust that may never be forgotten. I mean,
Okay.
I-
So, all right. You proposed a release plan to live with your girlfriend. You mentioned some employment, and why do you see that releasing to your girlfriend as a positive support?
I see it as a positive report because she's somebody that's there for me, somebody that I've talked about my feelings with, some of my risk factors, things that I want to accomplish. She knows what my goals and plans are. She also knows some of the programs I'd be interested in taking. And I think that she's a solid foundation for me to have somebody to resonate off. Sometimes we don't always have the answers, and just bouncing that off of somebody, sometimes you help yourself get that answer either by things you have said out loud or things that they'll give you feedback on. And she's just been an excellent rock for me. She's been great with advice, kind of. I mean, she's my rock, you know, she's really been there for me, and she has great feedback. She always has something to add to it, you know, so when I don't have the answer or maybe know which way to go with it, she can kind of help me in a direction with a bit of guidance.
Has she expressed any concern about you, about being your sponsor in the community? Any concerns about if you were to relapse in either way, substances or with a with another sex offender type offense?
I would say that she has a healthy awareness for it, absolutely. You know, it's something we've talked about and what that might look like, or, you know, what would be the warning signs, or if, you know, and I think the plan there is to hold me accountable. Not so much that, you know, something going wrong isn't possible. She knows that, but she also has a plan on what to look for, and, you know, she's holding me accountable. So accountability is number one.
So when you say warning signs, what have you two talked about in terms of warning signs?
Well, obviously, I wouldn't be looking at any content or anything of underage nature, or, you know, hanging out with people who, you know, may have kids, or, you know, not hanging at parks or anything like that. You know, it's not something that are in my future plans. And to me, to be doing anything like that would mean something's wrong. You know, like a grown man doesn't hang out at the park. You know, to me, that is a clear warning sign that something's wrong. I know that's a rough example, but, you know, there's just things that I plan to have in my life, and there's things like that that I don't plan to have in my life. I know that I can't hang out by the park. I know that that's a clear wrong. I know that I can't hang out at any schools, that these are underage people and I shouldn't be hanging out with them. You know, my plans are to have an adult friends and an adult life. And I think that that's where I'm most secure.
Okay, Mr. Savard, I appreciate you answering all my questions. I do not have any additional questions, Mr. Chair.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning.
Just a couple of follow-ups. You talked about your upbringing, right? And what happened with you, right? And
Yes.
what I'm going back to like 2017 with the burglaries, right? That you had an issue with opiates or Percocets or Percodan at that time. Is that accurate?
That would be correct. Yes, I had an opiate issue, and I believe that's directly related to me suppressing my feelings.
Yeah. Okay. You know, as my colleague talked to you about, you know, your support, and then you talked about, you know, you got to stay away from playgrounds, et cetera, et cetera. Do you still have an attraction to children?
Absolutely not. One of the things that the program did teach me is that I'm not actually physically attracted. It's it's a past experience that creates a circumstance, even though I don't actually feel that way. Like, I'm not sexually aroused by any means. There's no sexual attraction. I believe this all stems from the age that it happened to me, and it started happening to me around 6 years old.
And after your experience as a child, tell me how you never, as you grew older, you never attended any therapy for maybe what happened to you?
No, I did not, which was obviously a massive mistake. I think in those times where we're uneducated and uninformed, so to speak, that families tend to try to bury this when that's not the proper thing to do, that families should actually bring this to light and get everybody help, because everybody involved in that situation, whether it's the mother or the father, you know, the person who is traumatized and the loved ones around also, I think, should attend something too, how to process what actually happened. I wish that I would have done that when I was younger, and I think I could have avoided a lot of trouble becoming an adult and not understanding why I ever felt that way on that day. I didn't even really know that those feelings existed inside of me. I didn't even know what it was for the longest time. Like when this came up and this happened, I didn't understand why it was happening. I couldn't understand that after all that pain that I felt. Why would I do this? And the program helped me really sort that out and figure out what that is, because you need to know what that is to be able to prevent it.
Yeah, so, I think that's positive. So you got a lot out of that program, right?
Absolutely. And I think that it would even benefit me more to probably look into more. I think that would be a big positive for me.
All right, well, thank you for having a conversation with me. This time I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Pam, on the chance.
Yeah. So, Mr. Sabat, you mentioned earlier, you talked about schema that gave you a false sense of belief. So at age 31, you truly thought it was okay to have a sexual relationship with a 6-year-old.
So in that moment in time, I wouldn't say that it was that I believed that it was okay. I believe that because it was done to me, that for some reason that I can do it. That was the false sense of belief. Not that I believed I can do it just to do it, but that I believed it because it was done to me. I thought that I thought in some way, shape, or form, maybe I would get a piece back of me from the same thing happening to me.
But when it occurred the first time, and the victim told her mother, you indicated in the interview with the parole officer that the victim wanted you to stay, so that by staying, you assumed that there were no boundaries, so it was okay for you to do it again. How do you explain that?
So I would explain that by saying, I didn't assume there was no boundaries, but after staying and being there close to 5 months and constantly being around somebody that I should not have been around her. We should have removed me from the household. I should have removed myself from the household in a situation where I had an inappropriate relationship with somebody I should not have had a relationship with. So now I'm seeing this person every day. I'm spending time with them. And, at the time I was of like a stepfather figure, I wouldn't say her father, but a stepfather figure. And, there's all types of moments where, we're together, they're putting us alone all the time. And after 5 months, those feelings that.
I'm going to stop you because I'm going to read. You said the second instance occurred because you felt like there were no boundaries set after the first time. That's what you said. So I want to know, it's obvious that somewhere in your mind told you that it may not have been right what you were doing, but you still went ahead and did it because you feel you were allowed to do it.
That would be correct, yes.
So you said you took partial responsibility for it. Can you explain why it was only partial responsibility for the two offenses, two different occurrences?
So I'm not exactly sure where the partial responsibility is coming from.
Okay. All right. Keep thinking. I'm gonna find it for you. Sorry. So, you said that you didn't do some of what she said. And that there were two incidents. The other one, I didn't use my whatever, but it happened. That's what you said. So
Okay,
based on your conversation, it leads me to think that you're only taking partial responsibility, because if you're coming up with an excuse about the second time, you didn't come out and say, I take full responsibility for the two incidents that occurred. You were able to separate both of them.
okay, so
I know
Sorry.
you completed the sex offender program. So did you address that?
yes, I did. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. I thought, I was trying to interject.
Go ahead.
So originally, when I said that, to be clear, the first incident, and I don't want to change any words or anything like that, I was accused of penile contact from the rear. Originally, what I had said there on the paper was that it was my finger. And that was the misunderstanding there that I was at the time thought I was trying to clarify. I now understand that it's not important what the contact was, that there was contact and it was wrong on both ends. And there's no excuse for either time. And I know that for 100% fact. The first time should have never happened. The second time should have never happened. And after the first time, I should have removed myself from the circumstances. I mean, there's no other way to put it. It was a horrible mistake. And I do assume responsibility for both actions. They were terrible and they were wrong. And any kind of sexual contact should have never happened.
Right.
Never.
So the second time you said because there were no boundaries, but when you participated in the sex offender program, you learned that both instances
Were in
are
fact
your
my
full
fault.
responsibility.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So one other thing is that you said you still needed to address both past and present issues. So can you specifically identify the two issues? You don't have to go into any detail. I just want to be clear about what those issues are that you still need to work on. No detail, just give me.
Correct. Past abuse for myself.
Okay. Yeah.
And healthy sexual relations. Those are two very important things to me.
And just as a follow-up, I will ask you, so what, have you any insights into what a healthy sexual relationship is?
Yes, I do. I'm not.
Here, one or two sentences.
Yeah, I mean, a healthy sexual relationship is with a partner who is of age, number one. Number two, who's somebody else who wants to participate in that relationship with you. And, somebody who is obviously consenting. I mean,
All right, and I understand why you feel you still need to work on that. So I
Yes.
appreciate you saying that. So one last thing, you spoke about your current girlfriend being your rock. So were you not able to share your feelings with the victim, your first fiance, as you refer to her as? And do you know why you were not able to share the feelings that you're now sharing with your current girlfriend?
I believe that I was scared. I was scared to let those emotions out, what the judgment would be for being honest and saying, hey, listen, I've buried some dark down demons and some pain. And I was afraid what the response would be. I was afraid the response would be, hey, you get out of here. I don't want you anymore. I was afraid of rejection. I was afraid of being turned away.
Okay, so you were afraid of rejection. I agree with you. That ties into, your past self-abuse and other things that you have addressed as needing to work on. So I can see, Mr. Saber, that you are beginning to be on the right path and learning some things about yourself. So, I hope going forward, when you learn some more about what a healthy sexual relationship is, that you will spend some time learning about that before getting into another one. And as you said, you are going to address that in treatment when you go back in the community.
Absolutely.
Okay. So now you also said that you have a job.
Yes, I have a lined up situation, job circumstance with a friend upon release. He
Can you
can get me.
explain what the job is?
Yes, it's technically construction work, but what they actually do is paving. So they
Okay.
do paving and there'll be maintenance on the trucks in the colder season. So right now they're just doing maintenance at the shop and stuff like that. But he's got a pretty secure seat in there and he's already spoken to them about me, my skill sets and what I offer. And they're highly interested for me to come in for the interview and possibly start working immediately.
Yeah. And, just one last area. You were asked by my colleague, Mrs. Smith Mary, to talk about a high risk. And you said maybe an obstacle would be on the sex offender registry.
Yes.
So, and I could see that, but if it's important for you to go back and focus on those two things that you identified earlier, to work on for yourself, that will be a normal part of it. The other thing that I wanted to highlight is, as someone that's going to be on the registry, that you are going to have job restrictions. I do hope the job that you talked about today comes through for you. Are you aware that job restrictions are also going to be in place for you, that you won't be able to work at certain places?
Yes, and I think that that's highly understandable. I think that I should be in a healthy, safe work environment. And I think that goes for me and that goes for anybody that I work around. Nobody should be put into an unsafe situation. And I believe a lot of my skill sets lead me in a direction of a path of having some options for viable job opportunities. I've done mechanic work in the past where I worked for Valenti Motors in Watertown for almost 7 years. So I've got some experience there. I've done masonry and construction work for a few years and straight out of high school. And I was doing commercial fishing where I think that would be extremely low risk for anybody. I'm out on the water. It's all adults. We fish, we come in daily, so I can still check in daily, and it's local. You know, we don't go very far. So I think that would be a great opportunity for me to get back into too. So I believe I have some options.
Never make an assumption that a certain place is safe because you're talking about fishing. And I know a lot of families take their kids fishing. So, you know, you have to put some more thought into what you're doing. Some of the other jobs that you mentioned, you know, working on cars and stuff, your employer just has to make sure that if parents are going to come by with their children, you can't be around.
Okay.
Okay. So thank you for answering my questions, and I wish you the best of luck. I know we have victims' input, and the chair told you that the Waterbury State's attorney has strong objections to your early release. And we also have letters of support, and in particular, I know one from your current girlfriend who was your sponsor.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
All right,
Mr.
thank you.
Chair.
At this time, we'll turn the hearing over to Office of Victim Services for input.
I think it's
Good
my
morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, panel. Thank you, Sir Chair. I do have the victim who is joining us. I'm going to call her now. One moment. Thank you. You may begin with your statement. Over 2.5 years of being in a relationship with Cory, I never in a million years imagined this is what would have separated us. We went through some nasty times, this time being by far the worst of it all. The numerous times he had choked me, physically assaulted, and verbally degraded me, I thought was horrible until my little girl told me what had been done. 2 times he had hurt my little innocent girl inappropriately. My biggest fear had come true. My 6-year-old girl had her innocence taken from her, making her want to grow up and act so much older than what she actually is, and making her have this curiosity a child her age should not have yet. I have always taught my children that no one's allowed to touch your privates and vice versa. She may be little, but she was mighty. She was brave enough to come to me, despite being filled with fear that he would hurt her or myself. What amazes me the most about her bravery is she didn't even tell me alone, in private. She was courageous enough to say it with you sitting right there. I remember it clear as day as it replays in my head day in and day out, just like it has for my little girl as well. For months, we couldn't figure out why her belly hurt, why she was going to the nurse all the time, why she wasn't sleeping and having nightmares, why her vision was going blurry, and why she was biting her nails all the time. And then it all stopped. It was the monster. A monster in plain sight. He was supposed to be their Papa Bear, their protector. But all he ended up doing was taking away her innocence. On that horrible day, he threatened to kill me and burn the house down with the kids and myself in it. We went to the police. Here we are, though. We are survivors. It has been challenging over the last several years, watching my little girl still struggle with what had been done to her, still having nightmares and having a huge fear that he would get out of jail and hurt us all. This is why I am here today, speaking on behalf of my daughter and my family as a whole. We beg the parole board to please not allow this monster to leave prison so soon, as my daughter still needs to feel safe. to begin to feel some peace and continue to heal. This parole hearing is too soon and has not given my daughter and my family the time that we need to heal. This monster destroyed an innocent child's childhood and took something away from her she may never get back again, and that is her trust and belief in people. Please, on behalf of my sweet, innocent little girl, I am begging that you not allow Cory to be released on parole.
Thank you so much for your statement. Please continue to view. Thank you, panel.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it, Lisa? Yeah,
Yeah. Thank
okay,
you.
thank you, yeah. All right, so, let's say you,
So Mr. Stafford he's charged with 2 counts of illegal sexual contact with a victim under 16. I think it's been said the victim was 6 years old at the time. He was living with them, with the family. He committed the offense, he knew what he was doing, and by his own admission, stated that he didn't adhere to boundaries. He's serving a sentence of 20 years suspended after 8 years. He has 15 years of probation to follow. The overall risk assessment scores him as a low. And static 99 scores him as a low moderate. Mr. Stafford has a criminal history, includes a burglary in the 1st degree, which is a very serious offense in itself. He has done well throughout this. He's been in now about 4 years, since February 2020. He's done well. He has the 1 disciplinary report in 2001. He has taken programs that we would want him to have taken to address his risks, to give him tools to be successful in the community. The short-term sex offender treatment program, I thought he did a really satisfactory job explaining what he learned from the program. He's able to identify his risks. He was able to talk about his plan for living in the community. Took the Voices program. Again, he was able to talk about the harm to the victim. I have to say, I was a little bit, one of my hesitations is Mr. Stafford seems to put a lot of, sees himself as a victim quite a bit himself. And there's no denying that his abuse as a young person is devastating in itself. But what we're here for today is that Mr. Stafford is 35 years old and is now the perpetrator. So I'm not sure that he got all that he had hoped he would get from the Voices program. He did do the Tier 2 program, and we did not mention, but the report indicates that he's been continuing the aftercare program, which I think is it's the big picture. It's, how substance abuse affects how he's conducted his life through today. He's had a job in the facility, and so he has his release plan is reasonable. He has a person that he can live with, his partner. I think there are some issues with current housing, whether or not he would be allowed to live there, but that can be worked out. I do think that his options for employment are reasonable in terms of keeping his risk at a reduced level. In the end, of course, the last thing we are hearing is the victim's mother. And, from reading all the documents associated with this case, the victim was very brave. come forward. The victim was able to articulate what was done to her and confront Mr. Savard. Now, he served 4 of the 8 years of supervision. His 15 years of probation to follow. I do, in totality of the case, I do think that Mr. Savard has taken a number of programs that reduce his risk while in the community. I think that the conditions imposed by parole, by probation, go forward, and the fact that the sex offender registry for 10 years also does provide a level of reduced risk and safety to the community. I'm going to just say it's a very hard decision in terms of determining parole. On the one hand, Mr. Savard takes responsibility. He has done a lot of big programs. The impact to the victim is significant, though.
Right. Can I add something
Yes,
to what you're saying?
Please, so I think if we kind of have a discussion about this, it'll
Right.
bring us all to a
So, of concern to me is the 2 outstanding issues, which I think are extremely critical, and they're ones that he said played a role in what he committed, and that's his past on sexual abuse and not knowing what a healthy sexual relationship is. I have concerns about the fact that he went in with this charge, having a fiance with 3 children, one of whom he sexually offended against twice. And now he's released and he's going to a new girlfriend. Yet he hasn't yet addressed and gone into the past sexual abuse and working on healthy sexual relationships. So, I had some difficulty as to why, he now says that his current girlfriend is a rock friend while he's incarcerated. They're not really living together yet. Yet he lived with his fiance for 2 years, 2.5 years.
Yes.
And I don't know. I have some concerns between the 2 relationships. He was physically living with a fiance. He's incarcerated, but he's talking about how this great relationship is when he hadn't physically been, although he has known her for 18 years. It's a different type of relationship he would be entering with her. And I know she doesn't have any children, but
Well, in continuing this discussion about your concerns, and I do also share that. I'm thinking about what we know in terms of treatment in the community and how that's a much bigger, it's a more in-depth, more intense level of treatment, as will be the supervision for this particular case. And I see those areas of your concern as what would be addressed in that treatment realm, as opposed to what he could still do through the Department of Corrections.
yeah. But the other piece of concern I have is listening to the victim's mother and the fear of the victim of him coming out now when they haven't actually had enough time to work on the victim. And considering her age when it happened is of great concern to me, because now she's 10 years old. And for me, that's a pretty serious age. And for her to have a setback with him in the community is of concern to me. So my primary concern today would be that victim and the impact of him getting out now. And Mrs. Smith Palmera, I have to say, you did a great job with your questioning. But bottom line for me, when I hear how it would set back the victim when she's just beginning to address those issues, is of concern to me. If I didn't hear that, I probably would have been in favor. But my first priority today is the impact to the 10-year-old victim.
I don't disagree at all that the victim she is only 10 years old if we do the math from then to now. They're still 3 years and a sentence. Would we consider bringing Mr. Stafford back? Maybe have him participate in some mental health treatment? I think for, of course, keeping him incarcerated, there's no risk to the community. However, bringing him out where he would be participating in intensive sex offender treatment, I think it is a reasonable release option to think about when we're talking about release for early parole.
He's starting after care.
For substance abuse, yes.
Right. So he previously had indicated that there were no mental health, but obviously there is. So, my concern is if we give him another year, it's another year that the victim is still going through turmoil. I think I would just like him to stay here. I don't know what Chair's opinion is.
Okay, well, now on to Jack. These cases are always difficult, right? So we understand that. We had the victim input, we got the state's attorneys. We also listened to his witness, which we've seen, we seem to be doing fairly well. What's concerning to me is the back up to the strangulation back in 2011. 1 year suspended and 1 year probation. So that's the start of his criminal record, and then here we are today with this issue. As was stated, 2027. That's a while away. And as my colleague stated, a lot of times when we have these cases and then we bring them back and ask them to do some different thing, we also bring back the victims and or the state's attorney, right? So it's difficult for us as a board to make that constructive decision. So but as of today, I'm not in favor of release of today. But the next consideration is, do we go to end the sentence or do we bring them back? I mean, that's just where I'm at right now.
Well, for me, I don't feel like I would do a rehear. I think at some point before 2027, and I don't want to say it on the record, but there's another option for him to go out. So it's
Okay,
it would be a denial for me
you want to go
for nature
and victim.
injury and impact the victim and victim's family.
Well,
I'm in favor of, I'm actually in favor of granting him today. I hear all the concerns that Ms. Chance has about the video, and I don't dismiss them or diminish them in any way. I do see, when we look at Mr. Stafford and his risk assessment, all the programming that he has done, the evaluation from the sex offender treatment program points out all the work that he's done on himself, which I think is really a big portion of the unknown factor here. And knowing the level of supervision that he'll have in the community and the level of sex offender specifically treatment that he'll have in the community. I think that reduces that risk. It doesn't reduce the harm to the victim in any way, but I would hope that it would provide some level of understanding that he would be monitored very closely in terms of being a risk to victims.
Yeah, as I stated, it's difficult. So I'm on this, that page when doesn't sense. You got 15 years probation, but don't end the sentence, we don't have to say that. Right? So in the case of Cory S DOC, inmate number 407414, there's a motion at this time to deny early release for the following reasons: nature and circumstance of current events and injury and impact of the victim or victim's family. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed?
Aye.
This squad, this is a majority decision. We weren't able to give you an early release today, but we do wish you the best of luck, and you'll be getting all this information in the next couple of weeks. Thank you.
Concludes the hearing for Cory S DOC.
Okay, thank you for your time and patience today.
You're all set, Mr. Savard. You will get it in the mail, okay?
Okay,
All right, take care.
take care.
When you put
Leave that open. Right here.
It's pure madness. It's just absolute madness. Can you imagine that one of these parole board members was actually saying that he should get released? Are you nuts? This is sick. I mean, it's going to take a while to get to know these personalities, but here's the three board members. And she's the one who sounds like a grandmother. He's, he's the running, obviously. So it's her. I mean, it's got to be her. And we're going to have to learn about, at some point, we're going to have to go through their backgrounds and experiences because, right, we don't have that. But I cannot believe that she wanted to grant. To quote the mother, she says, I beg of you, for my daughter, for the sake of my daughter, deny parole. The guy's barely served any time. I mean, it was 2020 when he was charged. He's been in, what, a few years? The more I'm watching in Connecticut, by the way, these hearings are nuts. And the sentences that they hand out are jokes, just big jokes. I mean, it's every bit as bad as Louisiana, if not worse. I mean, he got an 8-year sentence. An 8-year sentence, and she wants to parole him out after serving 4 years. Like the mother said, how can he even be out for parole? It's too soon. And then the board members like, well, he's done great programs, and it's great for him to do programs outside, and he should have supervisory release, and and the other guy, the guy's like, yeah, but he got a sentence with 10 years like, what are you talking about? And it was just a crappy interview. I don't even know what they're saying. They're talking about in the written report that I'm frankly, I'm a bit confused. They spent a good part of the interview with him saying, well, the first time I did it to her, and then they didn't stop it. They said it was okay. So the next 5 months, they kept leaving me in the room with her, and they should have pulled, but they didn't, and so I thought it was okay, and that's what he had written down in an initial statement to them. I mean, like, do they not even realize that this is how messed up in the head he is? He actually was victim blaming the whole time. He thought that it was the little girl's fault, that she wanted him to do it. And let's just be real. We've seen enough of these hearings to know he went after a mother with 3 little girls intentionally. This wasn't a coincidence. He found her. He groomed the mom, and he did it all for access to his daughters. I have no doubt about it, in my opinion. It's my opinion. I have no doubt about it, in my opinion. And we just see this stuff all the time. It's just in their nature. They're cockroaches. And, it's like he's supposed to be their dada bear pig, their papa bear. And no, instead he's a monster, a monster, a monster. But again, where I'm confused is that they didn't clarify it. They didn't. It's like the questioning of this parole board, I just thought was awful, and they don't clarify anything. It's like, what do you mean? He's saying on one part that it came out that he did it. They kept him around for 5 months, and so that's why he did it again. But the mom spoke, and the mom said that when the daughter told her what happened in front of him, then he threatened to burn their house down, but they went to the cops right away that day. So again, I don't know what they're talking about. And, if of course he had done it and she led him around, then by all means she should be in prison with him. But that's not my takeaway. My takeaway is that she found out at that moment, that time, for the very first time, and she went to the police station, and he got arrested. So I don't, and the idea that it's just, I don't understand. I just don't understand. And, there's not much to go over. Also in this article, it lists an address, so I won't, but this is when he's arrested in 2020. And then what's it says? It says he was 31 years old, was arrested on sexual assault charges. 2 counts of first-degree sexual assault and 2 counts of risk of injury of a minor stemming from the complaint filed on February 25th. He was originally charged with first-degree unlawful restraint and first-degree reckless endangerment, second-degree strangulation, risk of injury to minor, breach of peace in connection with an incident on February 21st. During the investigations, the detective found new information that led to additional charges, showing that he had committed another sexual assault in October. They held him a $1.75 million bond. Good for them, at least doing that. I don't understand it. I really don't. He's talking about what he learned in his programs. And do you realize that way at the beginning, the only time he cried was for his father who was sick? He didn't cry about what he did to his victims. He didn't cry when he heard the mother. He didn't cry. The only time was for himself. And and they have him categorized as a low risk score. So it's just like Louisiana, a low risk score. What about this makes him a low risk score? Is it, you're talking about a 6-year-old little girl? They're sick. It's so sick. And oh, well, what did you learn in your program? You know, also it's like just drunk on the Kool-Aid programs here. It's the same thing. It's like, oh, let me hear what you've learned about your program. Well, I've learned a grown man should never be in a park. And it's like, what? What? What do you? That's what you learned. And then, oh my God, it's so sick. Thankfully, you know, I don't know if they do supporting statements here. Thankfully, we didn't need to listen to his new girlfriend. Can you imagine being in a situation where you would date someone who's locked up for doing this to a child and who has other, you know, charges of violence? I mean, this guy is just a real, like, why? Why would anyone date him? It's so disturbing. I don't know what to say. I'm just speechless with the insanity of all this. You know, they did have the district attorney's office make a statement that they're opposed, which I think I've seen now maybe 20 something hearings, and I don't think I've seen the district attorney comment on any of the hearings, and there are hearings that are just as bad as this. So at least they took the time to write a statement, right? They oppose, because apparently it doesn't seem that they do that here very often. Well, at all. This is the first time I've seen it. Oh, and there's another thing that he keeps saying. He keeps saying over and over again, I should have never have had that relationship with her. I had an inappropriate relationship with her. And it's like, it's not a relationship. You're sexually assaulting your really your stepdaughter. It's just, you know, he kept saying, you hear this in these roaches, in these monsters, which is what a monster. And the idea that he was even able to manipulate that one board member, it's very disturbing. It's like, let's hear this part again.
In a situation where I had an inappropriate relationship with somebody I should not have had a relationship with. So now I'm seeing this person every day. I'm spending time with them. And, you know, at the time I was of you know, like a stepfather figure, you know, I wouldn't say her father, but a stepfather figure. And, you know, there's all types of moments where, you know, we're together, they're putting us alone all the time. And after 5 months, those feelings that
I'm going to stop you because I'm going to read. You said the second instance occurred because you felt like there were no boundaries set after the first time. That's what you said. So I want to know, it's obvious that somewhere in your mind told you that it may not have been right what you were doing, but you still went ahead and did it because you feel you were allowed to do it.
That would be correct, yes.
So you said you took partial responsibility for it. Can you explain why it was only partial responsibility for the two offenses, two different occurrences?
So I'm not exactly sure where the partial responsibility is coming from.
Okay.
She was brave enough to come to me, despite being filled with fear that he would hurt her or myself. What amazes me the most about her bravery is she didn't even tell me alone, in private. She was courageous enough to say it with you sitting right there. I remember it clear as day as it replays in my head day in and day out. just like it has for my little girl as well. For months, we couldn't figure out why her belly hurt, why she was going to the nurse all the time, why she wasn't sleeping and having nightmares, why her vision was going blurry, and why she was biting her nails all the time. And then it all stopped. It was the monster. A monster in plain sight. He was supposed to be their papa bear, their protector. But all he ended up doing was taking away her innocence. On that horrible day, he threatened to kill me and burn the house down with the kids and myself in it. We went to the police. Here we are, though. We are survivors. It has been challenging over the last several years, watching my little girl still struggle with what had been done to her, still having nightmares and having a huge fear that he would get out of jail and hurt us all. This is why I am here today, speaking on behalf of my daughter and my family as a whole. We beg the parole board to please not allow this monster to leave prison so soon, as my daughter still needs to feel safe, to begin to feel some peace and continue to heal. This parole hearing is too soon and has not given my daughter and my family the time that we need to heal. This monster destroyed an innocent child's childhood and took something away from her she may never get back again, and that is her trust and belief in people. Please, on behalf of my sweet, innocent little girl.
You see him, what he's doing, like squeezing the pad and tapping his thumbs like he's bored. And there are points where I felt like he was like raging on it. It's just so despicable. It's just so he's such a cockroach.
I am begging that you not allow Cory to be released on parole.
Look at him. He's it's so disturbing. It's the whole thing. What a speech, though. I had to hear it again. What an amazing speech. I mean, she just said it so beautifully. And I can't get over the fact that one of the board members actually wanted to grant. It's pure insanity. We're going to be in for a real scary ride with this Connecticut stuff. We're seeing a lot of disturbing things coming out of there, and weird decisions by the board. But this is the classic monster predator roach, and so sadly a system that does not prioritize protecting our children at all, that you would hand out this little puny sentence and just think that these programs is what's saving us all. It's just complete insanity. But thank you, Richard, for the info, and with that I'll let you go.